my.
What is up, YouTube? This is Nanashi with a brand new video, and this time I'm here to talk about the brand new ban list that we finally got. Feels like it took forever this time around, didn't it? It probably had something to do with them changing 32 cards on this list, whereas they only changed 6 on the last one. And I'm not gonna lie, the last list hit a lot of different decks in certain ways, but this one seemed more centered around hitting a couple specific decks and giving us a couple cards that we have honestly been missing for a very long time. So let's see what they changed. Dynamite Knight, Grand Soil, True King Lithosagim, Denglong, Daigusto Emerald, Zodiac Broadbull, and Zodiac Trident are all banned. I'm not gonna lie, a lot of these hits were kind of expected. Dynamite Knight allowed for a lot of responses to happen. It allowed the controller to play traps straight from the deck to the field, and that gave them a lot of additional normal summons, as well as the ability to pop a lot of monsters. Very responsive card. It's honestly a good thing that it was hit. Grand Soil, I didn't really see this card come up a lot personally, but then again, I don't follow the meta curve. If I had to take a guess, I'd say it's probably because the True King and the baby dinos were all Earths, so therefore it could be used in the Dino True King deck, or it could have just been splashed into Zeus, which is equally as terrifying to think about. True King Lithosagim, I'm not surprised by this at all. It worked way too well with the Earth baby dinos. Not to mention, it obliterated 3 monsters out of your opponent's extra deck when it was summoned, which is terrifying to think of on its own. Denglong, I'm honestly upset about this hit. I get why they did it, it made it way too easy to access that counter trap, but at the same time, this card was pretty much integral to a lot of people who played Yang Zings, and I know this because my wife plays it. I'm sad to see this card get hit, especially when it didn't really have much time in the light. Daigusto Emerald? I'm not surprised. That card was used way too often in way too many decks. Now the Zodiac Broadbull and the Zodiac Trident, no one should be surprised about either of these. It happened in the OCG, it was bound to happen in the TCG. Up next on the list we have Ignis Heat, Miscellaneousaurus, Zodiac Ratpier, Dark Hole, Gateway of the Six, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and True King's Return, all going to 1. Ignis Heat is a little bit less troublesome than the one that was banned, honestly, because it plays the continuous spells, and if anybody's faced off against this deck, the traps are obviously a little bit more annoying than the spells, or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But I always found that Ignis Heat wasn't as much of a problem to deal with. Miscellaneousaurus, this one upsets me a bit. Obviously because I run dinos, so I'm a little biased, but this was one of their best playmakers. Still, I'm glad they hit this and not other cards in the deck, something like Oviraptor. Ratpier? We knew it was going to happen, it was coming. Dark Hole? That one was a little bit unexpected, because we've had 2 Dark Hole and 1 Raigeki for a while now, so I'm gonna have to change every deck I own just because of this one change alone. Oh, look at that. More deck profiles on the way. Go figure. Gateway of the Six? This one was surprising. 6 Samurai players should be rejoicing right about now, but probably not too much because even though it's a great card, it's still only at 1. Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is arguably a better Dark Hole, and I'm kind of noticing a trend with that. Are they trying to steer away from general board wipes? And True King's Return? This one does not surprise me in the least. Arguably, the True King and True Draco continuous traps are problems because of the simple fact that you can tribute them for materials and destroy a monster in the process, which derails a lot of strategies. Plus, this one special summons monsters from the graveyard, which just gives you double the tribute fodder, provided you went down that route. Next on the list, we have Blockluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning, Luster Pendulum, the Draco Slayer, Mathematician, Brionac, TG Hyper Librarian, Brain Control, Burial from a Different Dimension, El Shadal Fusion, and Preparation of Rites, all going to 2. I'd like to point out that every single one of these cards that is going to 2 were originally 1-ofs, so I'm not sure if that's a trend I should be paying attention to, but it's a neat little thing to point out. Blackluster Soldier's been at 1 for so long, I'm not surprised they finally released it to 2. Not to mention, they're trying to put a little bit more emphasis on the Blackluster Soldier archetype as a whole, especially since the ritual monster, when using the right materials, has the same effects as this thing. Luster Pendulum? There's no reason to keep it limited anymore. Pendulums are, well, not dead, but seriously hindered by the basic of the Link system, so I see no reason to keep it limited. Mathematician? Little surprising, it's a walking Foolish Burial, but you have to use up your normal summon, so I guess it's fair. Reenact? I want to say this matters, but the errata made it so that it kinda doesn't. Now, Hyper Librarian, I'm curious where this one will go. Obviously, Synchrons and Synchro-based decks have been slowed down, but it might not be such a bad hindrance to the point where Synchros can't play. Just not as well as they used to, I don't think. Brain Control going to 2? Doesn't really matter. Brain Control is not a great card. It's only really good as a side option, and not even a good one at that, against decks like, I suppose, True Draco, and maybe Monarchs, but it's not very good anymore after that errata. Burial from a Different Dimension going to 2? That actually matters, because that could be the replacement card for losing out on those miscellaneous Sauruses. So we could reload them into the graveyard and just continuously rebanish, possibly. El Shaddoll Fusion? With Construct still being banned, this card does not matter. And I will say this personally, even if Construct came back to 1, I don't think it would be as much of a problem as it used to be, because now they don't have the ability to swap out Construct for Construct. And Preparation of Rites. They're trying to put a little more emphasis on rituals, specifically the lower level ones, especially considering the fact that the Herald's deck is still a thing. And now for the final part of the list. Debris Dragon, Honest, Rescue Cat, Rescue Rabbit, Summoner Monk, Witch of the Black Forest, Charge of the Light Brigade, Dragon Ravine, and Wavering Eyes all went to 3. Debris Dragon, I'm kinda glad to see it came back. It doesn't really do very much compared to what it used to, but as of now, it's still a good card. I just don't think it's going to be good enough to matter as much as it used to. Honest, at 3 though, that matters. If you're lucky enough to get all 3 in your hand, you can theoretically OTK depending on what you're battling. Rescue Cat going to 3? I'm thrilled. I could not be happier that this guy is at 3 now. Although again, I'm probably biased because of my Beast deck, but you know, what can you do? I'm happy. Rescue Rabbit, on the other hand, I really want to know what this is going to do to decks like Dino Rabbit. It might be that they're trying to push the Rescue archetype for some reason, especially since they have a searching spell and a new monster. I don't know. Summoner Monk going to 3? That makes me happy, because now I can finally put 3 of it in my Dark deck, which I believe I've mentioned at least once in previous videos. Witch of the Black Forest, though, I'm happy to see her off the list, but I don't think I'm going to be using her much. Probably would only be useful to me if I were to Link Summon with her, which I could pull using Summoner Monk, so I don't know, maybe it'll work, but I don't think it's going to be good enough for me to really warrant using it 3. Maybe 1 or 2. Charge of the Light Brigade scares me a little bit. I've always had a personal issue with Light Swarms, purely because they are a terrifying deck to go up against on an average basis. Dragon Ravine? I'm kinda glad to see this card back at 3. I wish that they'd actually create decent Dragoonity support to make the deck better, but seeing it in other Dragon decks isn't the end of the world, I suppose. And Wavering Eyes? This one actually makes me smile a little bit. They are finally releasing the very strong stranglehold they've had on pendulum-based archetypes for a long time, and giving them the ability to breathe and play. Though again, that kind of is a moot point, given that the Link system has severely limited its abilities. The only deck that I can think of that would really benefit from Wavering Eyes being back at 3 would possibly be Kleeport, because of the confirmation that they will be getting a Link monster at some point in the near future. So, I'm kinda curious to see where that goes. Maybe Klee will matter again. My overall understanding of this ban list is that they hit the decks that mattered, released a few cards that didn't, and tried to limit the power of generic board wipes. I'm a little curious as to why, but if I had to fathom a guess, I'd say they want to limit board wipes to protect the fragility that is their new Link system. Yes, I'm calling it fragile because it's not exactly difficult to kill a Link monster. They haven't created enough support to really back their abilities yet. Losing out on the Dark Hole makes low-cost players like me suffer a little bit. But then again, that's what Torrential Tribute's for, so I think I'll be fine. All in all, I think this was a very well-thought-out list, for the most part. A few of the hits do upset me, but I can see why they hit most of the cards they did. And I am curious as to what's going to happen to the decks that were originally labeled the meta decks. Obviously, Zoo has been hit to a point where they'll still be able to run. They really can't do very much, but True King and True Draco have enough components together to possibly be a deck. I think it really just depends on how creative people end up being. I want to see something else top at a tournament, and I think this ban list might actually cultivate something new taking their places. Or at the very least, something different. Thanks for tuning in to my video about the ban list. I hope you guys enjoyed my personal opinion on it, and I hope to see you guys in the next deck profile video. So in the meantime, this has been Nanashi, signing out.
What's the next stage? What's the next stage?